Guys are really excited to be home. Last week was a challenging week, an interesting week, and one where we played a lot of different games, and to come out of it 2-1, especially with the start we had at Michigan, I think was strong for us overall. And we learned a lot about ourselves last week. I think we really did. We learned what we're capable of. We learned what kind of toughness you have to have, and how you have to be resilient when you're not as tough, or when you're not as aggressive, or when you're not on the attack like you are one night. You've got to turn back around and understand that you're fully capable of it. And I think that's what our guys did at Purdue, and we knew we were going to have to be, there was very little margin for error when you go into a place like Purdue. And what errors you make, you've got to be able to make up for in your hustle. You've got to be able to make up for in your aggressiveness. You've got to be able to make up for in your confidence. So you just keep playing. And I thought our guys did that. So now as we get ready for Illinois, it's much the same situation. We're going to be playing against a team that is hungry. We're going to be playing against a team that has won big games, that has been ranked throughout the season, that knows how to win on the road, and has got, they're extremely well coached. I think they're one of the better coaching staffs in the country. I really do. I think the Big Ten is full of good coaches, but I think the Illinois staff is one of the best in the country, and I think they've proven that over a period of time with how they've played year after year, and it's a tough league, and they're capable of winning anytime, anywhere, and that's exactly how we're preparing for this game. We know it's a big game in the sense that it's a big game for our fans in the sense of rivalry. We know that we had a big win against them last year. We also know that we got smacked around pretty good when we went up to Illinois last year, and they really showed no mercy in that game. And we did not match their aggressiveness. We did not match their intensity, and we paid for it. So we had we've had some really interesting games with them over a period of time, but we know this one is one that'll be an incredible challenge because they understand what's at stake. And they've got some guys that have been through it. They know what it's like to play big games in the month of February and March, and we've got to continue to learn to understand what that means. So with that being said, we're looking forward to a phenomenal crowd. It's not only a whiteout, but I hope it's a loud out. I hope it's just numbing for how loud it is inside of the building, and just breaks that decibel level again, like we have a couple of times this year. So that's what we're excited about, and we've had a good week of practice, and we're ready to play.
Besides just the straight wins and losses aspect, how did your team come through the past month with all those games on the road, and now 5 out of the next 7 at home? How did they come through this year in terms of attitude, everything?
Oh, I think very good. I think very good. I think they responded every time. I think we learned a lot in the month of January. I don't think there's any question about that. I think you learn how hard it is to keep your edge, and how you have to work at it. And when you haven't had a lot of success over a period of time, it's sometimes very easy to lose sight of why you're having it. It's easy to rationalize that it might be something else other than just pure hard work, pure hustle, pure execution. Those are the things that it comes down to. And teams that win over long periods of time, they get that. And every time a team gets away from that, and it happens all across the country, in any league, and really in any sport. And when that happens, the letdowns are hard to overcome, especially in this league. So I think our guys have gained confidence. I think they've gained stature. I think they've gained understanding. But that's only as good as the next day. And that's what they have to continue to understand. There's nothing about the past day, even though we've won 18 games, 18 different ways, there's nothing that guarantees you anything but even more hard work the next day. And I think that's what our guys are hopefully learning.
The talent that Illinois has with Myers and Paul, stuff, just the kind of problems that present.
Well, I think they've got a very talented team, and they're explosive. They've got tremendous guard play. I mean, right off the bat, they've got the leading scorer in the league, the guy that makes more threes a game than anybody else, in Brandon Paul. They've got a guy that went from averaging 2-1 a year ago to 13-9. And gets all kinds of attention in Myers Leonard. They've got Joseph Bertrand, who has bided his time in that program and is now one of the mainstays in their program. They've got Tracy Abrams, who's a freshman point guard, who's started all these games in the league and doesn't play like a freshman. They've got DJ Richardson, who's one of the more underrated guards in our league, and maybe in a lot of leagues, because of how good he is and how quick he is with the ball and how good a three-point shooter He is. So they're a very, very talented team. Sam Maniscalco is a guy that has made big shots his entire career. He's a guy that has been a volume free throw shooter. He's a guy that is a tremendous three-point shooter when he was at Bradley. He's a guy they have on the court for them at the end of games and when it's winning time. So they're a deep team. Henry is a tremendous athlete who can shoot the ball, who can get to the basket. Tyler Griffey, I've always felt, is a very underrated player in this league. And so they're a very good team, and there's balance there. There's inside, outside. They can run. They can score in the half court. They're one of the better teams in this league. And then I think when you have a lot of teams that are right there together, sometimes it's easy to forget that. But they're a very good team. They're one of two people who have beaten Ohio State in this league, and they had a guy get 43 in that game. So we know what we're up against.
Talk about Paul before, but having a guy that can go off like that and can get it on a roll shooting like that, does that change the game plan at all in a way that you go and attack a guy like that maybe has had spurts where he can put up these 30 and 40?
Well, we play against a lot of really good players and a lot of really good guards, and there's a tremendous amount of focus that has to go onto a player like that. But when you look at Illinois, if you decide you're going to determine, or if you determine that you're just going to focus on one or two guys, you're probably going to lose the game, because they have numerous other people that can make plays. And that's what makes them good. That's what makes them dangerous. They're not putting people out on the court that can't score or can't shoot. So, and it begins with how you handle the screen. You've got to really, there's a lot of screens in this game. He does a tremendous job, Brandon Paul does, of reading the screens, of using the screens, of setting his man up. And he's very good with the ball. He's a three-pronged scorer. He can score at the rim, he can score in the mid-range, and he can score from three. So when you've got a guy like that, that makes it really, really dangerous. So you've got to have a really good individual matchup on him, but you've also got to have very good team focus.
You talked about their ability to run, but also score in the half court. It seems like maybe as much as anybody else in this league, they've played so many different types of games and just big sort of just swings in the sort of style and direction and kind of scores. Are they? I mean, can they sort of? Are they, as much of, I guess, a chameleon as anybody else in this league where they can kind of play
maybe.
Type of game?
Yeah, maybe. I think because they can score in and out. And I think when you have that, and Myers Leonard can score in and out. He can also step outside and shoot the ball. So I'm not sure that we want to be in a long-term half-court game, with this team, because I think they've got as much speed and as explosiveness. The only one that maybe be comparison to them with the speed and explosiveness on the perimeter would be, Michigan State's a little different because they can get bigger. I would probably put these guys with Ohio State as far as with their speed and explosiveness at all those positions. And there's a lot of very quick and fast teams, but these guys utilize it, especially when they're going with four perimeter guys. And it makes it really, really hard to deal with. So you've got to be really locked into guarding the dribble, without a doubt. And at the same time, they get very good penetration. They've always been one of the national leaders in assists. So that passing the basketball and driving kick is a big part of their offense.
What kind of challenge is Myers for Cody?
Well, he's a challenge for our team. So he's a challenge for our entire team. And much the same that I'm sure that they're focused on their team guarding Cody, we're focused on our team guarding their team in the sense of Myers Leonard. It's not an individual matchup game. So to me, we've got to be really strong. We've got to be really true to our game plan, and know that he can hurt you in a lot of different ways.
When you have 4 or 5 days between games like you're looking at now, do you ever take time and talk to the team about big picture stuff, the league, the NCAA,
No.
Or is it just totally Illinois?
Well, there's big picture volume, I think, every time you talk to your team, but you never get ahead of where you're at. That's not the best thing. I mean, they watch enough television and read enough things that they know what time. We haven't been through this in this group, at Indiana. This program. I mean, this group of players or inside of this program since we've been here, where you're in this type of situation. But the biggest mistake we can make is to live in the past or jump too far in the future. I mean, you've got to stay in the present, because the moment that you don't, the moment that we don't as coaches, they'll read that in a second. But it's really, I mean, you're so focused on making sure that your team's improving, and if they're doing a good job improving, well, then that should take care of the future. If you're just game planning for the individual game and you're just working on things that affect that game, well, you're going to get stagnant at some other point. So we want to make sure that our fundamentals are stuff that carry over. But at the same time, the game plan for the individual game is extremely important. So you want to have good balance in that, and I think that's how guys get better.
Kind of building on that, have the big picture goals changed at all for this team, or are they kind of the same from day one this season that they are now?
I think they've always had, this team has always had expectations, and my expectation as a coach is to hold them accountable to them, but at the same time never get ahead of where you need to be. So we don't break the season into segments. We don't break the segment into weeks. We break the season into days. I mean, what are we getting out of that day? And when our coaching staff meets, now we may jump ahead from time to time. Okay, what do we want to be doing at the end of the week? What do we want to be doing next week? But it never goes to the players that way. It's always about, the present and the culminating point being that game, that next game. How do we keep getting ready for that game? But like I said, if you're doing a good job and you're really focused on fundamentals and you're focused on shooting the ball and holding them accountable for their passing and their screening and all those things that happen in any game, well, then you've got a chance to really improve. And so that's I would think if people watch this practice, they would see a really good balance of what we're doing to improve individually, what we're doing to improve team-wise when it comes to the five-man part of it. All right, and then what we're doing to get ready for that game. And this time of year, even more situational things. So situations for us, and especially the situations and the late game situations of another team. So I'll give you an example. We do late game situations for no matter who it is. And sometimes it's the day of the game, but it's always covered. And as you go down the line, you want to make sure that that's an area that your team feels extreme comfort. And how they play at the end of a game, how they play at the end of a clock, and how they defend at an end of a clock or an end of a game. So those are things that I think we put even more time on, this time of year.
Have you seen a boost from the team from beating a rival, beating them on the road, and just knowing that they're playing well?
Probably, but our job is to make sure that our edge is strong and that we move forward. But yeah, I think so. I mean, yesterday our practice was so good, I cut it after an hour and 10 minutes. And today there was a little more methodical to it, and things that I didn't do yesterday wanted to get done today. But at the same time, I mean, it's a very thorough practice. So you want them to be excited, you want them to feel confident, but you do not want a team that loses sight of how tough this is. And we played very desperate the other night. And we have every reason to believe that Illinois will play the same way. It's a great attribute. And it's one that I've learned that you can try to coach that all you want. That's an internal thing. And that's a very internal thing. And when teams play that way, they're very hard to deal with. And we've got to make sure that we're playing like that. We've got to have an extreme blue-collar mentality tomorrow night, even though it's a whiteout. We've got to have an extreme level of edge. And again, our guys, they don't really know what they have missed out on because it's been on TV. It wasn't like they'd been there and all of a sudden, wow, we didn't get it this year. They hadn't been there. So it's a whole new deal. And so for us to start talking about the unknown and putting that at the forefront versus what we have to do each and every individual day, that'd be a mistake. Yep. But you do want them to be excited. But you don't want, this is not a time for giddy, this is a time for great focus.
You said you're coming off a game where you played with desperation. Illinois, you expect to do the same thing.
We have to play the same way.
Does it help you, because those players know exactly what, it's very, very fresh that they know the kind of attitude Illinois is going to have coming in?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I don't think you can look anywhere in this league and say, well, we're home, we'll be fine, or well, we're on the road, we can't win. I just don't think it's like that. I think that's why the league is so good. If you had some teams that you knew you were gonna pop, or you had some places you could go where you have no chance, then there's not as much balance in the league. And that's not, look at Purdue last night. I mean, a couple things go different, that's a different deal. Now, we didn't go into Ohio State and play very well, all right, but we beat them. I mean, so I think that's what makes this league so good. There's a lot of confidence in all teams. There really is. That you just got to stay right there with that. I mean, you can't be jumping ahead.
The ability to sustain that edge, that desperation, the consistency to do that. How difficult a challenge is that to?
Oh, I've said it before. When you're dealing with young men, You know, so it's constant. I mean, you're dealing with young people. I mean, it's very hard to stay. It's a lot easier for coaches. You know, I mean, we do this for a living, day in and day out. I mean, so you have to be creative. You have to work at different things. You have to keep it fresh. You know, there's a regimen to it, but there's different ways to get the same result, and you don't have to make it be the same way every day. You need there's certain amounts of visual management to this. You know, with your team, it's February. They've been together a long time, so that's part of the thrill of the job. How do you keep it creative? How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it exciting? But at the end of the day, none of that really matters when you're lining up there and going for a rebound. There's no way to make those bumps and bruises feel any better. I mean, it's part of it, and our guys relished that the other night. So our belief is that we've got to continue to relish that if we're going to be successful, because they've seen what happens when you really lay it out, and they've seen that different times this year. It wasn't like that was the first night that we played, you know, with tremendous aggressiveness, but it really paid off for us on the road.
What's the latest on Riddell?
It's going to be really tight. It's going to be tight for him to play tomorrow. It really will. I'm not saying he won't. I'm not being evasive. I mean, we're going to see how he continues to heal up. But he's done very little.
What you obviously played, you know, Remy and Vic a lot on the court at the same time. I guess what did you sort of learn after watching on film? Just what kind of extra, just dimension you have with those two guys, and I guess as you move forward, you know.
Well, I think it's what they learned. I think it's the decision making, and that's what it comes down to. We were very low in turnovers, and I think that's key. I think when you're locked in and you're focused and you're asking guys to do things they don't normally do, the simpler you can keep it, the better. And so what we've tried to do this week is make sure that we're building more situations that could come up, you know, with different guys handling the ball. How do we react to those? That's part of the situational part of it. That's part of projecting. Okay, well, we go to this, they could try this. You know, they've done this in the past. And again, get you ready for a game, keeps you more ready for the long term of the season. Keeps your guys focused, keeps changing it up, keeps challenging them to do different things. But at the same time, when you're coaching a game, you want to try to make it as simple as possible for guys where they haven't done a lot of those things. But with that being said, I thought they did an excellent job the other night, and I really think it started in the Michigan game with the way that they played together. And we did not want to have Jordan have to handle the ball the entire time the other night against all that pressure with Lewis Jackson. We had some pressure releases put in. We had some actions put in that would relieve the pressure. At the same time, guys were very confident handling the ball because they were looking for their teammates. They were on the attack. Our screening was better. So when those kind of fundamentals come together, a lot of good things can happen. As long as that happens, those two guys can get better playing, doing different things than what they've done. And it's all part of building your team for the long haul and putting them in a lot of different situations that they could face down the road, but at the same time it helps you win that individual game.
Sorry about that, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Sorry.
You started out talking about resiliency and keeping the edge and focus and all those sorts of things. What area has this team made its greatest improvement in that you've seen to this point?
I don't know if I have an answer. Too close to it. I think sometimes when you're that close to it, it's very hard to put it in perspective. I would say they've done a really, really good job of understanding what it takes to be successful in each game. That doesn't mean we've done it every time, but they know when we've gotten away from something in a game that we needed to do. And I think with that, it builds up a mindset that they're very calm and not dejected or discouraged in tight games or in games where they're not ahead, and there's not a sense of panic. So I would say that's where maturity has come from. We don't always understand how tough you have to be possession by possession. We don't always understand how to continue to play through a lead and build on that lead. I'd like to see that get better. There's no question about that. And but I think this team has been very resilient in the fact that they keep coming at you. They'll keep coming.
It was extra nice to win the Purdue game with some really good defense, given that that was been an area of focus and improvement versus the Iowa game where you won with an outstanding offensive play.
Yeah, it's great to go. It's great to go beat a team like Purdue. I mean, because they're good, and it's very hard to play there, and they haven't lost many games in there over Matt's period of time. So when you go in there and you beat Purdue, you know you've done something. I think you have to understand game in and game out what that game is bringing to you. And we had no chance in that game if we weren't going to be tough on the glass, if we weren't going to be physical on our blockouts, if we weren't going to play through contact, if we weren't going to screen better. If we were going to try to take quick shots, it was going to play right into their hands. But at the same time, you want to run. So, no, I wouldn't discredit either win. I mean, in the sense of putting one ahead of the other. I mean, but obviously when you go on the road and you get that kind of confidence, you can build on that. You know, so I don't think there's any doubt about that. So there are 2 wins that got us to 17 and 18 wins. But I mean, you go on the road and you win at Purdue, you know you've accomplished something.
Anything else for Coach?
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.